Hi, and welcome to our editorial spotlight event, Don't Call It Quits, How to Upgrade Your Career Without Changing Jobs. I'm your host, Ebony Flake, C-suite reporter here at Insider, where we cover the workplace and career space from several angles with a special focus on what the future of work might look like after the Great Resignation. And today I'm joined by my colleague, Shana Lebowitz Gaynor, who is a correspondent at Insider and author of Don't Call It Quits, Turn the Job You Have into the Job You Love. We also have with us Al Dia, founder of the workplace consultancy Betterwork Labs. We're looking forward to what I hope to be a lively and insightful conversation. Feel free to submit any questions you have in the chat, and we'll try our best to get to them toward the end of this 30-minute event. You can also join this conversation on Twitter and LinkedIn using the hashtag #InsiderEvents. So with all of that being said, let's just go ahead and jump in. Shana, what I really loved about your book was that every chapter provided really clear and workable tips for people who are vacillating with whether or not to leave their job. In fact, in the final chapter, you acknowledge that in some instances, quitting may be the best option. As someone who's made a career pivot myself, that really resonated with me. And I can recall in my circumstances, what a complicated decision it was to finally make the call to quit a perfectly good job in human resources in order to pursue my passion of writing full time. And for me, that wait was really complicated and colored by my personal life experiences, right? So as someone who was raised by a single mom who worked 2 jobs, Winn-Dixie and Walmart, to support my sister and I, the idea of leaving a good and stable career for something as precarious as writing felt crazy. And so it occurs to me that our identities really do factor into kind of who can quit and what that process, that decision-making process looks like. So Shana, I'd love for you to talk about how identity, kind of who we are and where we are in life, factors into that decision of whether or not we choose to leave a job.
Thanks, Ebony. First of all, I'm delighted that you read the book and made it to the final chapter. So thank you. And I'm also really glad that you brought up that point about how everyone's personal identity and life experiences can affect or complicate their career decisions, and specifically the decision to quit. I spoke to a few people that I profiled in the book, and they said that when they were wrestling with the decision to quit their job and in some cases without anything else lined up, they were really worried about what their parents would say or what their family had already told them. Just as you said, Ebony, never quit a job before you've got something else, a sure thing lined up, and so that. I think that's one particular example that a lot of us can relate to. In general, though, I think it's important to remember that if you're hesitant to quit, and that's because you're something in your past or your family or your background makes you fearful and hesitant, that's not necessarily something to be angry with yourself about and to say why am I so why am I so afraid, and why can't I just take a risk like everybody else? I think it's okay to, there are many good reasons to be worried about quitting a stable job. And I think rather than judging yourself for it and wishing you could be different, I think it's important to just sort of examine that if I am trying to sound like a yoga teacher here or something. And also to just think about, like, is my only option to listen to what my mom told me or to just quit? Like, is there anything else in between? Is there any other option in between those two poles?
Yeah, I think that's a really great perspective to take, Shauna. And with that, Al, I'd love to turn to you because I know that you made a major career change toward the beginning of your career and really pivoted strongly toward entrepreneurship. Can you tell us about how your background informed that decision?
Yeah, I'd be happy to speak about that. And I think for me, growing up, I grew up in upstate New York. Both my parents were immigrants to the United States, and education and career were really their ticket to the middle class and being able to provide a great life for my older sister and I. And I remember coming home from school, and at the dinner table, we would certainly talk about what they did at work each day and their jobs and careers. And they really encouraged both of us to find careers and jobs that we could enjoy and be excellent at. But the other thing that they did that I thought was really unique was that they always surrounded us in different ways with other professionals who were doing interesting things in their careers, ranging from executives to entrepreneurs. And one of my favorite memories was growing up. My father used to take us actually to conferences that he used to attend. And we would go and we'd meet other people doing interesting things and just hearing about how they led, but also how they thought about their own careers. And as I think about the work that I do now in terms of, certainly being an entrepreneur, but as well as working with companies to think about, how can they create opportunities where their people can do their best work and grow. I certainly can see the through line through how some of the ways in which I was raised and what I was taught growing up really gave me the gumption as well as the opportunity to find this path now where I get to talk to people every day about their careers, or I get to talk to leaders about how do we create a company where people can really grow and develop in their careers and make an impact for the business. And so it definitely, certainly impacted my own journey and gave me the confidence to make my own career decisions in various ways, shapes, and form.
Yeah, thank you for that, Al. I think it's very interesting, as Shauna was saying, the ways in which we kind of make our career decisions and how informed that is by our backgrounds. There are many people, though, who are coming to the decision to either quit their jobs or make career pivots, with so many headlines recently about the Great Resignation, and more recently around quiet quitting, this idea of folks kind of quitting a bit while they're still employed and kind of managing how much they're willing to put into the roles that they have. It's very clear that more and more workers are becoming disengaged. Now, there may be many reasons for that, but Shauna, the book includes really great testimonials of people who've been able to turn a challenging job situation around. So you've spoke to several kind of experts who were able to kind of turn a situation where maybe they were disenchanted into one where they were able to kind of feel good about the work that they were doing. Can you talk, Shauna, about a strategy in the book that really stood out to you?
It's interesting, Ebony, you said that some of the people I talked to were and are experts in some workplace domain, and they've also been frustrated at a job and thought about quitting, and they found a way to make it work for them. One of those people is she's an HR chief, and her last job was at a very big streaming company, and she told me this story, and she actually told me the story for an insider interview a few years ago, and I followed up with her to hear more about it and include it in the book. She was not the HR chief yet, but she was in an HR position, and she was just really disenchanted with her work. She had already started talking to other, recruiters at other companies, and she felt like every time, she wanted to get work done or make a change, the other colleagues and teams that she needed to work with were just they were not helping her out, and she felt like she was the only one who was displaying the motivation needed to get things done, and that was obviously very frustrating for her. So one day she told me she instead of instead of quitting and leaving the job she had, she just sat down and she made what she called a trigger and action list. And she in the trigger column, she wrote down something that had bothered her at work that day. This team, I asked them to do this thing or give me this document, and they said no, we don't have the time. And then in the action column, she would write down one thing that she could do, instead of getting upset and feeling stuck. In this case, it could have been like, well, I'll find someone in my team who can handle this easily and tactfully, and we'll take it from there. And that actually worked. And eventually she rose through the ranks and became the head of HR at that company. And now she's at a different startup. So it all worked out for her nicely.
That is a really great tactic. And I'll definitely kind of take note of that. I hope our viewers will as well. But Al, you are actually one of the experts that Shana interviewed for the book. And in the book, you mentioned that a lot of people are either on autopilot or sleepwalking in terms of their career development. Can you say a little bit more about what you meant by that?
Sure, I absolutely can. And I feel like maybe I was a little harsh, but I think part of it just stems from having lots of these conversations and being very passionate about this topic. I think that one of the things that I found from my own experience in my own career, as well as from talking with thousands of people about theirs, is that no one actually really ever teaches you to effectively manage your career. There's a lot of other things that they teach you, but that is not one thing. That is one of them. And I know this firsthand from, again, growing up where I was and, being able to have these conversations about careers and work from a very early age to going to an incredibly good school and being very privileged to have access to lots of education and learning. When I got into the workplace, I really struggled with understanding what this was in terms of effectively managing your career and how to do it. And for me, at least, it showed up in my own performance evaluations the first couple cycles. And it wasn't until, and I talk a little bit about this in the book, but it wasn't until I went to a manager who I had a good sense of trust with and just said, I'm lost. I'm not really sure what to do. Is there anything you can help me with on this? How can I better understand how to do this? And she was kind enough and smart enough to take the time to teach me a few things. And after that, my performance started getting better. I started learning a bunch of mindsets and habits that would really help me effectively manage my career. And not after long, people started coming to me for advice on how to do this because they were saying that they were lost or they were never sure on how to do it. And I think that we've done a really good job of encouraging people to work hard and to certainly to put in their effort. But one of the things that we often forget is this idea about being able to intentionally manage your career, something that really starts with knowing how to actually do that. And I think that is definitely an opportunity that I've seen in terms of how we can continue to evolve the workplace. I mean, how we continue to create cultures where people feel empowered, employees feel empowered to take ownership of really developing themselves in their careers. And so I've lived it firsthand, but I've also, it's what motivates me to do the work that I do each and every day.
Yeah, Al, you said something really key there, which is this idea of teaching people how to intentionally manage their careers. And Shana, what I really appreciated about your book is that all of the insights really kind of go back to that point of ways in which you can kind of manage and direct your career and your work experience. And we know as kind of reporters at Insider that there's so much in the career space that talks about what employers should do in order to retain employees and what companies should kind of bring to the table in order to keep talent engaged. And while all of that is really important, I love that your book really advocates for a shared ownership model where both the employee and the employer are empowered, and folks can take agency over their own careers and work experiences. Shana, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about why you took this approach of shared ownership where you kind of placed some of the onus for career management directly with workers.
Yeah, I appreciate the way you framed it, Ebony, as a shared ownership. And to be quite frank, I framed the book this way because I felt like, and I read for work and for pleasure. I read a lot of books at the intersection of business and careers and self-improvement. And I noticed that there weren't really that many books, and there wasn't that much guidance in general for people like me. And I mean specifically people who were not in a in a managing role or in a people managing role. But they were still driven and ambitious professionals. And what I observed is that most of the advice out there is geared either toward leaders telling them this is how to keep your people happy and engaged and performing well. And then the rest of it is geared toward individual contributors and professionals saying, like, if you don't like your job and you're ready to do something else, here's how to make a change. And I'm thinking to myself, like, where is where are the pointers for somebody who they like their job and they're not looking to leave, but they want to make it better. So I hope that's where my book and the reporting in my book comes in. And I do, as you said, Ebony, I think all the stuff we publish here on Insider about what employers can do to create better performing and more inclusive cultures is hugely critical. I hope that my book is additive and not doesn't conflict with that.
I think that's kind of the perfect approach, because at the end of the day, we are responsible for kind of the direction our careers take, and no one's going to kind of pay the consequences for that but us. So I love that shared ownership model that both of you talked about. Shana, at the top of the call, Al and I shared a little bit of our personal experiences that kind of inform how we choose to shape our careers, and how we've chosen on our career path to kind of prioritize things. And as your desk mate and colleague, Shana, I know that you've had some recent life changes that have colored the way that you look at career. In fact, I saw that you just submitted a story that I cannot wait to read that talks a little bit about your own personal testimonial. I wonder if you'd be willing to share, because I think personal experiences are so engaging. I wonder if you'd be willing to talk about kind of how your view on career navigation has changed as your life has changed.
I am glad you asked, Ebony. And yes, so the recent life change is that I had a baby. He is 6 months old as of a few days ago. Yeah, I thank you. I remember, I wrote most of this book while I was pregnant, and I listened to a lot of the people I interviewed. Actually, most of the people I interviewed did have kids. Some of them were grown already, but they would talk about how at different points in their children's lives, or in their different points in their family's experience, they had felt differently about their careers, or pursued a different career, or been more inclined to quit or not. And I appreciated what they were saying on sort of a rational and intellectual level. And now that I have a child myself, I am a little more sympathetic to that. I think that it's sort of hard to invest yourself fully in more than one or two things at a time. And what that means for me, I hope it doesn't mean that I'm not performing well at my job, or I'm not putting in as many hours or effort at my job. But I think it means for me that my identity is sort of the tenets, that's the right word, of my identity have sort of shifted, so that it's a little less focused on work and my job and being a reporter and writing a book, and it's that, and it also includes being a mother and trying to be a good and present mother to my son. And it also frankly means that sometimes, even I'm sitting here right now and like that voice or thing in the back of my head I don't think it'll ever go away. Like, is he okay? What is he doing? Like, when did I see him last? And so that just colors the way I experience work activities, even if I think or hope it doesn't affect the way I maybe perform or come across.
I really love that transparency, and thank you so much for being willing to share that, because I think everyone who's listening is coming from their own kind of unique perspectives. And there may be reasons that people are weighing whether or not to quit. So Shana, with just a few minutes left, if there is someone right now who's listening and they have drafted their resignation notice, and maybe they're wavering on whether or not to turn it in this week, if you could offer that person just one strategy from the book, what would it be?
Yes. So my one parting words of wisdom to you to the person in that situation. Give yourself 2 minutes, sit down, stand up, 2 minutes, and think, is there one little thing that I can do to make tomorrow's workday better? You don't even have to do the thing, but one thing that would make tomorrow's workday better. And I think the benefit of and the purpose of a thought exercise like this one is to realize that maybe quitting is not the only option you have. Even if ultimately you do decide to quit, it's a little freeing to know that you can do something else for yourself.
Yeah, I think that is awesome advice. I think that's also a really great way to start your day. What can I do today to make this the best possible work day? I also think that this has been just a wonderful conversation. Al, I really appreciate you joining. Shana, thank you so much for allowing us to highlight you and the book in this way. And for all the audience here, thank you so much for joining us. If you found this conversation helpful, please go get Shana's book. Don't Call It Quits, shameless plug. You can find it on Amazon. You can also follow her byline at Insider, where she covers careers and human resources. And with that, I will kind of pivot and see if there are any audience questions. Feel free, if you haven't already, to drop any questions you do have in Slack. So I'll give maybe 30 seconds. And if there are no questions, then we're happy to kind of give you all just a few minutes back.
While we're looking for questions, I will chime in and say, you all should follow Ebony's byline too. She's a terrific reporter, and keep up with Al too. He publishes a lot on his website and I think on social media. You can tell me if that's wrong, but they are both great follows.
Oh, thank you so much. Al, any parting words from you?
I would just say that to go off the theme of what you can do today, there's never a bad day to start thinking intentionally about the direction you want to go in your career. And the best place to start is just right where you are. It's never too late. It's never too early. And yeah, I would just say if you're here today, chances are you care about your career. And so it's never too late to start thinking intentionally about it.
Ah, that's perfect. Thank you, Al, and thank you all for joining.